You want answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical rant.
One of the things I've been very concerned about in my tenure as Normal's outreach director is how we can increase the participation in the marijuana law reform community from Latinos in this community. You know, the Latino market, Hispanics in America, are the fastest growing demographic group in this country. And by 2050, white guys like me and the majority of drug law reformers will be a minority compared to all minorities combined. So it's imperative upon drug law reformers to add a little bit of color to our lineup to make sure that we are having the outreach to all the people, especially when you consider the statistics of the war on drugs and, of course, the war on marijuana. We told the story earlier of New York City's marijuana arrests, how they've topped 50,000 arrests in just 1 year. I actually did the calculation and found that means 1 out of 17 marijuana arrests takes place in New York City. 1 out of 17 American marijuana arrests takes place in New York City. But, of course, the stats on that are very, very skewed away toward locking up black and brown people. According to the statistics, 70% of those arrested in New York City for marijuana possession crimes are younger than age 30, and 86% are black and Latino. Even though when you look at the use rates of marijuana in New York City and across the country, blacks and Latinos use marijuana less than other demographic groups in this country. When we look at the national surveys on drug use and health, they show us some pretty telling statistics. 49% of all white people in America have tried marijuana. Nearly half of all people, all white people, have tried marijuana, which is, of the major demographic groups, the largest group as far as people who have tried marijuana. African Americans are second, and then Latinos come in third in overall use of marijuana. And this is seen in the statistics in New York City as well when we look at use of marijuana. Disproportionately, Latinos and African Americans, though, are locked up for marijuana. I'm fond of saying that 3 out of 4 people in America who smoke pot are white, but 3 out of 4 people who get locked up for it are not. And that's what we're finding here from these statistics. Of all the people who have ever smoked marijuana in the United States, 75.7% of them are Caucasian, white Americans. Only 10% are black and 9% are Hispanic. When we look at the figures by racial group, only 41% of black people have tried marijuana. Only 31.4% of Hispanics have tried marijuana, the lowest rate other than Asian Americans, which is only 14.7% of Asian Americans have tried marijuana. But then again, as I was mentioning, the racial statistics on the arrests do not bear that statistic out. This is a graph of the state prisoners serving time for drug charges. As of 2006, 44% of people in jail, in state prisons, I should say, for drug charges are African American. 21% are Hispanic, despite the fact that we've shown Hispanics use marijuana at much less rates than African Americans or whites. Whites make up 27% of those state prisoners doing time on drug charges. And this becomes more imperative when we look at the violence that is taking place in the Mexican drug war. We have the city of Juarez, Chihuahua State in Mexico, having more murders in 1 year than the entire state of California. That's right, some 2,700 murders in Juarez over the last year that we have statistics, compared to 1,900 that we have in the entire state of California over the same year. In the map that we're showing on the screen, all of the dark red shaded areas of Mexico are places that have had more than 250 murders in 1 year. That's most of what you're seeing on the Pacific coast of Mexico and up there near Texas. that entire area of the country just a bloodbath. And we also see in the graph in the bottom right corner, the red bars indicating how many journalists have been killed every year in the Mexican drug war. 10 in the last year's statistics. 10 journalists killed just trying to cover this drug war. This means that we need to especially reach out to Latinos and to show them how this war on drugs, even though they don't consume marijuana, is affecting them. That the war on drugs is disproportionately punishing their people, disproportionately locking them up, and they can't turn a blind eye to it or turn away from it from some sort of moralistic point of view. It needs to be addressed as being injustice to Latin American people, to Hispanic people in this country. And furthermore, the unfair stereotyping that goes on of Latin Americans, Mexican Americans in this country because of the demonization that happens in the war on drugs. I received a phone call just, was it yesterday, maybe 2 days ago, from a gentleman, and he was speaking to me from Trinity County, California, in the Emerald Triangle. And of course, there's medical marijuana there, and there's quite often city council meetings or county board meetings, whatever they're called, where they have to meet and discuss what the county is going to do about regulations on dispensaries or on personal grows or whatever it might be. And this gentleman was complaining because he was telling me of how he would go to testify at these county meetings, and there were so many people coming to testify, other members of the public coming to testify, saying blatantly racist and bigoted things about Mexicans and Hispanics. You know, we need to drive all the spics, and that's the wording he tell me they're using. We need to drive all the spics out of here, is what they're saying in city council meetings. Now, that's not a surprise coming from the public, right? You know, there's going to be boneheads out there. There's going to be idiots out there that get in front of a microphone at a council meeting and say something ignorant and bigoted like that. What he was complaining about was the city councilors, the people running the meeting, not calling it out. Just, all right, thank you for your words, good day, right? And how other people who were leaders in medical marijuana movement out there, activists who weren't Hispanic, seemed to not notice it or call any attention to it either. And he was explaining to me how he felt very intimidated in this situation. And he had a thick Hispanic accent, but a very educated man. He told me his background. He's got a doctorate. I mean, the guy is definitely educated and you know, very fluent in English and everything, you know, and so he's just telling his frustration. I'm thinking, here's this guy, right, who has been through college and gotten his doctorate and probably knows so much more about the process and and politics and the issues of medical marijuana than just the average person out there. Yet this expert voice who could lend so much to the discussion, especially from the point of view of the Hispanic community, does not feel welcome in the community, does not feel welcome to voice his views because others in our community aren't calling out the racism that's swirling around us all, right? And I'm not just calling out just medical marijuana on this. I mean, America's a racist country. It's all around us. It's just, we need to find ways to squash that, to call it out for what it is. And when people are, you know, demonizing the Mexican drug trafficking organizations, it's important to understand that's criminals. That's some criminal people who happen to be Mexicans, who happen to be Hispanic. And to not paint with a broad brush and say things like, oh, the damn Mexicans, we got to get the Mexicans out of California. The Mexicans are ruining it all. No. In fact, most of California was Mexico, okay? It's not a coincidence these places are called San Diego, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, okay? It's not a coincidence. But we've got to bring Hispanics into this movement. We need to have more Latino outreach. I am working with some interns to help do some translation projects to make more of this information available to Spanish-speaking audiences. And I'd like to crowdsource this. I'd like to engage and get some help from those of you out there. If you're fluent in Spanish and English and would like to help with some of these projects, help us get some of our stuff translated so these arguments can be better made to the Latino community, we'd really appreciate your help. Just send me an email at stash@normal.org and let me know how you can help and what ideas you have, and we'll work together. We'll bring everyone in on this. All voices need to be heard, especially the voices of the people whose peoples are being locked up far more for marijuana than people like me. I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for listening. We'll be back with Toker Talk Radio here right after the break. For those of you listening on the podcast, thanks for the download. We'll talk to you tomorrow. For Ganja John and Cannabis Carrie, it's Normal Show Live. Until next time, take care.